On a rainy afternoon in Seattle, Emily Harper, now a successful book editor, strolled through the crowded aisles of a literary conference. She felt content with her achievements over the past years. The rain tapping against the large windows of the convention center created a melancholic melody that seemed to echo a distant past. Suddenly, among the crowd, she spotted a strangely familiar face. Jack Sullivan, her ex-husband, was there, chatting animatedly with a group of businessmen. The initial shock made her pause in the middle of the hallway, her heart racing unevenly. Jack didn't seem to have changed much. He still had that confident demeanor and easy smile that once charmed her. But now there was something different in his eyes, a weight that wasn't there before. Emily hesitated, painful memories from a decade ago beginning to surface, threatening to flood her mind. She tried to discreetly move away, but it was too late. Jack saw her, and his eyes locked onto hers. He paused, surprise clearly written on his face. With determined steps, he approached her. Emily felt a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, and a hint of curiosity. "Emily," Jack said, his voice slightly hesitant but still carrying that authoritative tone she remembered so well. "Jack," she replied, trying to maintain her composure. "What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same," he responded with a half-smile. "I'm here for a business meeting." Seems like fate has a sense of ironic humor, doesn't it? Emily took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves. "Yes, it does seem so." Before they could say anything else, a young boy of about 9 ran up to Emily, holding out a book he wanted her to sign. "Mom, can you sign this for me?" Jack glanced at the boy, and something in his expression changed. He leaned in slightly, studying the boy's face. "Who's this?" he asked, his voice softer, almost trembling. Emily placed her hand on her son's shoulder. "This is Liam, my son." Jack took a step back, visibly shaken. He tried to smile, but the effort was evident. He looks a lot like me," Emily finished, looking directly into Jack's eyes, challenging him to deny the resemblance that he could no longer ignore. Jack swallowed hard, realizing that this reunion brought more than just painful memories. He felt that a hidden truth was about to be revealed, one that could change everything he thought he knew about their past. As Emily and Jack exchanged intense looks, their minds began to drift to a different time, a decade earlier, when things were very different. The memory of their marriage, filled with promises and dreams, now seemed like a distant and shattered dream. The scene shifts to a sunny afternoon in Connecticut, where Emily and Jack, newlyweds, were in their spacious home. Their joy, however, was being overshadowed by a growing shadow of frustration. Repeated attempts and failures to conceive a child began to erode the couple's happiness. "Emily, it's been 2 years," Jack said, his voice laden with impatience and desperation. "Have you been to the doctor again?" "Yes, Jack, I have," Emily replied, trying to conceal her own pain. "They say everything's fine with me. Maybe you should get checked too." Jack refused to entertain the suggestion. "I don't need tests, Emily. In my family there have never been issues like this. It must be something with you." Those words, spoken with such certainty, cut Emily deeply. She knew something was wrong, but Jack's reluctance to even consider that he could be the cause was a harsh blow. Doctor visits became a painful routine for Emily, and each negative result widened the rift between them. "Why do you always blame me?" Emily finally confronted Jack one night, the tension between them unbearable. "This is something we need to face together." "Because I know it's not me," Jack replied coldly. "My father had 5 children, my grandparents too. It's you, Emily. You can't give me the air I need." With those words, Jack not only dealt a devastating blow to Emily's heart, but also sealed the fate of their marriage. He refused to admit any responsibility, while Emily sank deeper into pain and humiliation. As Emily and Jack exchanged intense looks, their minds began to wander to a different time. A decade ago, when things were vastly different. The memory of their marriage, brimming with promises and dreams, now seemed like a distant, shattered dream. The scene shifted to a sunny afternoon in Connecticut, where Emily and Jack, newlyweds, were in their spacious home. Yet their joy was overshadowed by a growing shadow of frustration. Repeated attempts and failures to conceive began to erode the couple's happiness. "Emily, it's been 2 years," Jack said, his voice filled with impatience and desperation. "Have you seen the doctor again?" "Yes, Jack, I have," Emily replied, trying to hide her own pain. "They say everything's fine with me. Maybe you should get tested too." Jack dismissed the idea outright. "I don't need tests, Emily. In my family, there have never been issues like this. It must be something with you." Those words, spoken so assuredly, cut Emily deeply. She knew something was wrong, but Jack's refusal to even consider that he might be the cause was a harsh blow. Doctor visits became a painful routine for Emily, and each negative result widened the rift between them. "Why do you always blame me?" Emily finally confronted Jack one night, the tension between them unbearable. "This is something we need to face together." "Because I know it's not me," Jack replied coldly. "My father had 5 children, my grandparents too. It's you, Emily. You can't give me the air I need." With those words, Jack not only dealt a devastating blow to Emily's heart, but also sealed the fate of their marriage. He refused to acknowledge any responsibility, while Emily sank deeper into pain and humiliation. The separation came soon after. Determined to find a new life where he could have the heir he desired, Jack left Emily with little more than painful memories and a broken heart. She found herself alone, helpless, with nothing but the shadow of a love she once thought was eternal. Back in the present, at the literary conference, Emily watched Jack with a mix of anger and sadness. Liam's presence by her side was a reminder of how much she had to fight through and overcome. Meanwhile, Jack began to realize that things may not have been as straightforward as he once believed. Jack's mind continued to delve into the painful memories of his past. Back to that fateful night, he recalled the decision that changed everything. They were in the luxurious office of the Sullivan Mansion, surrounded by walls adorned with books and family mementos. A crackling fireplace offered warmth that contrasted with the chill that hung between them. Emily sat there, her eyes red from crying, clutching yet another negative medical result in her trembling hands. Jack paced back and forth, frustration evident in every step he took. "This has to stop, Emily." He finally broke the oppressive silence. "We can't keep living this lie. I need an heir to continue my family's legacy, and clearly you can't give me that." Emily looked up, pain and disbelief etched on her face. "Do you really believe this is my fault, Jack? The doctors said there could be other reasons. We should both get tested. But you refuse to even consider that possibility." "No," he replied with cutting coldness. "I don't need tests. My family has always been fertile. This is beyond me. I won't subject myself to this anymore. And I can't live in this uncertainty." Jack's words were like knives, cutting deep into Emily's soul. She knew she was being unjustly blamed, but his stubbornness and arrogance were insurmountable. Jack's pride was an impenetrable wall that now forever separated them. "So that's it?" Emily asked, her voice breaking with emotion. "You're willing to throw everything away over something you won't even investigate?" Jack stopped pacing, looking at her with a mixture of frustration and resignation. "Yes, Emily. I think we have nothing more to say." The pain was unbearable, but Emily knew there was no use in pleading further. Jack had made his decision, and she would have to live with the consequences. That night, he walked out of the home they shared, taking with him all the dreams they once had together. Back in the present at the convention center, Jack looked at Emily and Liam, realizing the weight of his decision. The pain he caused, the life he destroyed because of his own pride. Meanwhile, Emily held Liam's hand tightly, remembering how she had to rebuild her life from scratch, far away from the man she once loved. After the painful divorce, Emily Harper left behind the mansion and life she had built with Jack in Connecticut. With a heart in pieces and nothing but her suitcases, she returned to her hometown, a small and picturesque community in upstate New York. There, away from glamour and pressure, Emily hoped to find the peace she so desperately needed. However, the homecoming wasn't easy. The small town was filled with memories of her past, and every corner seemed to whisper old stories. It was on one of these corners that she encountered Tom Bennett, her first love. Tom now owned a local bookstore, a beloved figure in the community, and the same gentle, understanding man she always remembered. "Emily? I can't believe it's you," Tom exclaimed when he saw her step into his shop for the first time in years. His warm smile was a balm to Emily's wounded heart. "Tom," she replied, voice filled with a mix of surprise and relief, "it's so good to see you." The two quickly rekindled their old friendship, and over time, their relationship blossomed once more into something deeper. Tom offered Emily unwavering support and a shoulder to cry on as she shared the pains and disappointments of her recent past. During one of these intimate conversations, on a starry night by the lake, Emily confessed her frustrations and sorrows. "They said I was infertile, Tom, that I could never have children. Jack left me because of it." Tom held her hand firmly. "Emily, doctors don't always have all the answers. We should seek a second opinion, try to understand better." With Tom's help, Emily consulted a fertility specialist in town. After a series of detailed tests, the truth finally came to light. "Emily, you're not infertile," the doctor said with an encouraging smile. "In fact, I see no issues preventing you from having children." The revelation brought both relief and a new wave of pain. Emily had been unfairly blamed and abandoned for something that was never her fault. But alongside Tom, she found the strength to move forward. Not long after, Emily discovered she was pregnant. The news was met with joy and renewed hope. Liam was born on a spring morning, bringing a new light to Emily's life. Tom was by her side every step of the way, helping to create a home filled with love and security. Together, they formed a happy, close-knit family, far from the ghosts of the past. Meanwhile, in a luxurious office in Manhattan, Jack Sullivan continued his life unaware that the woman he had left behind had finally found the happiness and fulfillment that he never offered her. Back in the present, at the Literary Congress, Emily watches Jack with a mix of emotions. He remains unaware of the journey she has undertaken, the truth she has discovered, and the new life she has built. And Liam, the living symbol of her resilience and strength, stands by her side, ready to face anything. In the months following Emily's return to her hometown, the happiness she found with Tom and the anticipation of Liam's arrival brought a new light to her life. She had left behind the shadows of her marriage with Jack and focused on her promising future. One morning, while Emily sipped her coffee on Tom's porch, a letter caught her eye. It was from the medical office where she had undergone fertility tests. With a mix of curiosity and apprehension, she opened the envelope and began reading the detailed results the doctor had promised to send. As her eyes scanned the words, her heart began to race. "Tom," she called out, her voice trembling. "Could you come here for a minute?" Tom emerged from the kitchen, still holding a plate of toast, and sat beside her. "What is it, Emily?" "These are the results of my fertility tests," she said, handing him the letter. The doctor explained everything during the consultation. "But there's something here I think you should see." Tom read the letter carefully, his expression shifting from curiosity to surprise. "Emily, this confirms that you were never infertile. And more, it says here that if anyone was sterile, it was likely Jack," Emily concluded, the truth finally revealing itself with painful clarity. "He always refused to get tested, always blamed me. And in the end, it was him who couldn't have children." The discovery brought both relief and a new source of pain. For all those years, Emily had carried the burden of guilt that wasn't hers. Jack had accused, humiliated, and abandoned her, all based on a wrong assumption and his own pride. "Emily," Tom said, pulling her into a comforting embrace, "this explains so much. You don't deserve to carry this pain alone. And now you have a new life, a new family that loves you." Tom's words were a comfort, but the revelation brought a new internal conflict for Emily. She wondered if she should tell Jack the truth, if he deserved to know. But for now, she decided to focus on her pregnancy and the growing love she felt for Tom and the baby on the way. When Liam was born, he brought immense happiness to Emily and Tom. Every smile, every laugh from the boy was a living proof that Emily was never the issue. They built a life full of love and joy, far away from the shadows of the past. However, the truth could not be ignored forever. Emily knew that at some point, fate would bring Jack back into her life, and the revelation she had uncovered would change everything. But for now, she embraced her new life with gratitude and hope, aware that the future still held many challenges and surprises. The early years of Liam's life were filled with laughter, learning, and precious moments. Emily and Tom created an environment full of love and security for him. The small town in New York became a warm home where Liam could grow surrounded by nature and loyal friends. Tom's constant presence beside Emily was a solid foundation in their lives. One sunny morning, Emily and Tom decided to take Liam for a stroll in the local park. Liam, with his tousled blonde hair and bright eyes, ran ahead of them, laughing and exploring every corner of the park. Emily watched her son with a smile of pure happiness, feeling blessed for every moment spent with him. As they walked, Tom took Emily's hand and gently pulled her closer. "Emily, I never thought I could be this happy. You and Liam mean everything to me." Emily looked into Tom's eyes, warmed by the love he radiated. "Me too, Tom. You've given me a second chance at life, one I never imagined I'd have." Suddenly, Liam ran back to them, holding a yellow flower he had found. "Mommy, Daddy, look what I found." "It's beautiful, Liam," Emily said, kneeling down to his level. "You're very special, you know?" As Emily held the flower, a thought crossed her mind. There was something very special about Liam, something she knew Jack could never understand. Jack, with all his coldness and determination, could never see the simple beauty of life as she and Tom now did. This realization filled her with silent joy and deep sadness at the same time. The park was filled with families and laughter. The sound of children playing and birds singing created a symphony of happiness that seemed to perfectly encapsulate Emily's new life. But despite the peace she felt, there was a corner of her heart that still wondered about Jack. He didn't know about Liam's existence or the truth about his own infertility. As Emily pondered this, Tom seemed to read her thoughts. "Emily, you know Jack will find out the truth at some point. What will you do when that happens?" Emily sighed, looking at Liam, who was now swinging on one of the park swings. "I don't know, Tom. Part of me thinks he doesn't deserve to know. But another part of me thinks he has the right to know the truth, even if it doesn't change anything." Tom nodded understandingly. "I'll be by your side no matter what you decide. We're a family now, and we'll face everything together." Tom's unconditional support was everything Emily needed in that moment. She knew that regardless of what the future held, she had a solid foundation of love and support in her new family. And as she watched Liam play, she felt a mix of pride and hope for the future. Years had passed since Emily Harper and Jack Sullivan divorced, but fate had a strange way of bringing together paths that were meant to remain separate. In the heart of Manhattan, at a sophisticated restaurant overlooking Central Park, Jack and Emily met again, this time for a lunch that promised to be anything but simple. Emily arrived first, nervously sitting at the reserved table. She observed the elegant movement of the restaurant, trying to calm her nerves. When Jack entered, still imposing and confident, the air seemed to grow heavier. They exchanged brief, polite glances before sitting face to face. "Emily," Jack began, attempting to break the ice. "Thank you for accepting my invitation. It's been a long time." "Yes, Jack, it has," Emily replied, keeping her voice steady. "What did you want to discuss?" Jack hesitated for a moment, clearly uncomfortable. "I heard you have a son. I wanted to meet him if possible." Emily took a deep breath, looking directly into Jack's eyes. "Yes, I have a son. His name is Liam." The revelation seemed to momentarily leave Jack speechless. He looked down at the table, processing the information. "Liam," he repeated, as if testing the sound of the name. "And his father?" "Tom Bennett," Emily replied without hesitation. "Do you remember him?" "Yes, I remember," Jack said, his expression becoming tense. "What happened between you two after we parted ways?" Emily briefly recounted her return to her hometown and how she reconnected with Tom. She explained how she discovered her true fertility and the joy that Liam brought into their lives. Each word seemed to pierce Jack, but he maintained his composure. "Emily, I'm sorry for everything. I was wrong about you. I should have taken the test. But now I need to know. Can I meet Liam?" Emily pondered the question. She knew Liam deserved to know the truth, but she also knew it would reopen old wounds. "He's a happy child, Jack. I don't want anything to hurt him. I promise I just want to meet him," Jack insisted, his voice tinged with genuine regret. I just need to know." Before Emily could respond, the restaurant door opened, and Tom walked in, followed by Liam. Tom, always a pillar of strength, looked at Jack with a neutral expression, while Liam, with his childish curiosity, looked at the stranger at the table. "Hi, Mommy. Who's he?" Liam asked, pointing at Jack. Emily smiled at her son, then looked at Jack. "Liam, this is Jack. He's an old friend of Mommy's." Liam looked at Jack, his eyes full of innocence and curiosity. "Hi, Jack. Do you like dinosaurs?" Jack smiled, though there was a deep sadness in his eyes. "Yes, Liam. I really like dinosaurs." The lunch continued with a mix of formal and uncomfortable conversation. Jack observed every move Liam made, every laugh, every gesture, feeling overwhelmed by what he had lost. And Emily, as she watched, knew that this meeting was just the beginning of a new and complicated phase in their lives. Jack's thoughts were in turmoil after the tense encounter at the restaurant. He couldn't shake Liam from his mind. The resemblance, the energy, the boy's curiosity. Something didn't sit right within him, and he needed to know the truth. Jack made the decision to undergo a paternity test. He needed this answer, even though he feared what he might discover. A few days later, Jack found a pretext to invite Emily and Liam for a picnic in Central Park. Emily, reluctant but sensing Jack's persistence, agreed, knowing he wouldn't relent until he found some form of closure. Tom accompanied them, ever the protector, keeping a watchful eye on Jack. The day was sunny, and Liam ran through the park laughing and playing. Meanwhile, Jack observed every move, trying to discern any trace that could confirm his suspicions. At an opportune moment, he discreetly collected a sample of Liam's hair, something that could be used for the DNA test. "Emily, Tom, thank you for coming." Jack began, trying to sound casual. "I know this is unusual, but I wanted to have a chance to get to know Liam better." "We understand, Jack," Tom replied, placing a comforting hand on Emily's shoulder. "But we want this to be done the right way." Days later, Jack received the test results. He sat in his luxurious office, the sealed envelope trembling slightly in his hands. Taking a deep breath, he opened it and read the results. The shock hit him like a punch to the gut. Liam was not his son. More than that, the results revealed something even more devastating. Jack was sterile. Jack let the letter fall to the floor, his eyes staring into emptiness. How could this be? His entire life, his decisions, his accusations against Emily, all based on a lie he had told himself. He needed to confront this truth, but first, he had to face another question that was even more painful. Jack returned home where Sarah, his wife, was waiting. He entered the living room, his face pale and his expression grave. "Sarah, we need to talk." Sarah, seeing the seriousness in Jack's eyes, nodded, her own heart beginning to race. "What is it, Jack?" "I took a paternity test for Liam." "He's not my son," Jack began, trying to keep his voice steady. But the test revealed something else. I'm sterile." The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah looked at Jack, her face initially confused, then filled with a mix of fear and guilt. "Jack, I can explain." "Sarah," Jack interrupted, his voice trembling. "If I'm sterile, that means our daughter isn't mine either." Sarah started to cry, tears silently streaming down her face. "Jack, I'm so sorry. It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. I was so desperate to have a child, and it was with your business partner, Michael." The revelation hit Jack like a wave, almost knocking him over. Michael, his friend and business partner, was the father of his daughter. The betrayal was unbearable, and everything he thought he knew about his life was crumbling. He stood up, anger and pain swirling within him. I need some time," he said, Walking out the door and leaving Sarah crying on the couch, Jack wandered the streets of Manhattan, his mind in turmoil. The truths he had uncovered not only shattered his past, but also cast a shadow over his future. He knew he needed to make amends, not only with Emily but also with himself. The cold autumn wind swept through the streets of Manhattan as Jack wandered aimlessly, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. He couldn't believe what he had discovered. The revelations about his sterility and Sarah's betrayal were like knives plunged into his heart. With each step, he felt the weight of distrust and doubt growing inside him. Back at Emily's house, the atmosphere was more tense than ever. Tom had sensed Emily's unease since the picnic in the park. "Emily, what's bothering you?" he asked gently, holding her hand as they sat on the couch. "It's Jack," she replied, sighing deeply. "He wants to know more about Liam. And I'm starting to think he suspects something. Maybe he already knows the truth." Tom squeezed her hand firmly. "We did the right thing, Emily. The truth needed to come out at some point. But let's not let this affect our family." Emily nodded, trying to calm herself. "You're right, Tom. But still, something tells me Jack won't stop here." Meanwhile, Jack found refuge in a small, discreet bar in the heart of the city. Sitting in the darkest corner, he ordered a strong drink, trying to drown his sorrows. But the alcohol only seemed to intensify his doubts. He replayed every moment of his marriage with Sarah, every fake smile, every whispered lie. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Michael, his business partner. "Jack, we need to talk. It's urgent." Jack hesitated, but he knew he needed to confront this situation head-on. He arranged to meet Michael later that night. When they arrived at the agreed-upon restaurant, a quiet place away from the city's hustle and bustle, the tension between them was palpable. "Jack, Michael started, but Jack raised his hand to stop him. "I know about Sarah and my daughter," Jack said, his voice cold and controlled. "The paternity test revealed more than I expected." Michael took a deep breath, seeming relieved not to have to hide the truth anymore. "Jack, I'm sorry. I never wanted this to happen. It was a mistake, a moment of weakness for both of us." Jack looked at Michael, trying to control the anger and pain boiling inside him. "You betrayed me, Michael. Not just as a business partner, but as a friend. I trusted you." "I know," Michael replied, guilt evident in his eyes. "And I'm willing to do anything to make it right. I know I can't change the past, but I want to help however I can." Jack remained silent for a moment, processing Michael's words. Finally, he spoke, his voice filled with determination. "The first thing you can do is leave my company. And the second is to never come near me or my family again." Michael nodded, accepting Jack's decision. "I understand. I'll respect that." As Jack walked out of the restaurant, he felt a tremendous weight beginning to lift off his shoulders. But he knew there was still much to resolve. He needed to face Emily and Tom again, to understand his place in Liam's life. And above all, he needed to find a way to deal with the consequences of his past actions. Returning to his apartment, Jack felt exhausted but determined. He knew the path to redemption would be long and difficult, but he was willing to face every obstacle. The distrust and doubt that had haunted his life were starting to dissipate, making room for truth and the possibility of a fresh start. Jack spent a sleepless night, the revelations about Sarah and Michael swirling in his mind. He needed answers. He needed to confront Sarah once and for all. As dawn broke, he felt determined, yet the sadness and anger still weighed heavy on his heart. He went downstairs to the kitchen, where Sarah was preparing breakfast. The tension was palpable, the silence oppressive. Sophie was in the living room, engrossed in her cartoons. Jack knew the conversation he was about to have couldn't wait any longer. "Sarah, we need to talk now," he said, his voice firm but low, so as not to draw Sophie's attention. Sarah stopped what she was doing and looked at him, her eyes still red from crying the night before. "I know, Jack," she replied, her voice trembling. "Let's go to the office." They headed to the office, closing the door for some privacy. Jack began to speak, the pain evident in his voice. "Sarah, I need to understand why you did this. Why did you betray me with Michael? And why did you keep this lie for so long? Sarah took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. Jack, I know that nothing I say can justify what I did, but I was feeling so alone. You were always so focused on work, on the company, and I felt abandoned. Michael was there, listening to me, supporting me. And then it happened. Jack clenched his fists, trying to control his anger. You should have come to talk to me, Sarah. We could have worked together to solve our problems. But instead, you betrayed me, and now our family is shattered. I know, Sarah replied, tears streaming down her face. I know I messed up, and I'm so sorry for everything. But Jack, despite everything, I love you. And Sophie. She may not be your biological daughter, but you're the only father she's ever known. She loves you, and so do I. Jack felt his heart ache at the thought of Sophie. He loved her deeply, and the idea of losing his connection with her was unbearable. I love Sophie, Sarah. I don't want her to suffer because of our mistakes, but I need time to process all of this. Sarah nodded, understanding Jack's pain. I understand, Jack. I'll give you the space you need, but please don't give up on us. We can still find a way to get through this. Jack sighed, emotionally exhausted. I don't know, Sarah. I need time to think. Let's focus on Sophie and try to keep things as normal as possible for her. With that, Jack left the office, leaving Sarah alone with her tears. He went to the living room, where Sophie was sitting on the couch, laughing at the adventures of her favorite characters. He sat down beside her, seeking comfort in the innocent presence of his daughter. Hi, Daddy, Sophie said, looking at him with a radiant smile. Want to watch with me? Jack smiled, though the sadness still lingered. Of course, sweetheart. Let's watch together. As Sophie snuggled up next to him, Jack knew the road ahead would be tough. Trust was broken and wounds ran deep. But for Sophie's sake, he was willing to try to fight for a resolution. He knew the journey to rebuild his life and his family would be long and challenging, but he was determined to move forward, one step at a time. The days that followed Jack's confrontation with Sarah were a mix of pain and reflection. He tried to focus on work, but his mind kept drifting back to the betrayal and to Sophie. He needed to find a way forward, but first he had to settle things with Michael. One afternoon, Jack decided it was time to face his longtime friend and partner. He drove to the company's office, feeling the weight of tension increasing with every mile. When he arrived, he walked straight into Michael's office without even knocking. Michael looked up from his documents, visibly surprised by the unexpected visit. Jack, what are you doing here? Jack closed the door behind him and approached Michael's desk. His eyes filled with a mix of anger and sorrow. We need to talk, Michael. Now. Michael sighed, knowing this moment would come. All right, Jack. Let's talk. Why, Michael? Jack asked, his voice trembling with emotion. Why did you do this to me? I trusted you like a brother, and you betrayed me in the worst possible way. Michael hung his head, unable to meet Jack's gaze. I know I messed up, Jack. There's no excuse for what I did. It was a moment of weakness, and I knew I was destroying everything we had built, but I couldn't stop. You couldn't stop? Jack repeated, disbelief evident in his voice. You've destroyed my family, Michael. Sarah betrayed me, but you were my friend. That hurts more than anything else. Michael finally looked at Jack, tears welling up in his eyes. I know, Jack, and I'm truly sorry. I'll accept any consequences for what I've done. If you need me to leave the company, I will. But please believe me when I say I never wanted to hurt you like this. Jack took a deep breath, trying to control the anger still burning inside him. You will leave the company, Michael. There's no place for you here anymore. And I want you to stay away from my family. Sophie may never know the truth, but I don't want you to be a part of her life. Michael nodded, resigned. I understand, Jack, and I respect your decision. I'll arrange my immediate departure. Jack turned to leave but paused at the door. Michael, one last thing. I don't know how I'm going to move forward after this, but I will try, and I hope you find a way to redeem yourself. Michael couldn't reply, just nodded as Jack walked out of the office, closing the door behind him. The weight of betrayal still lingered, but there was a small sense of relief in knowing that part of this painful journey was coming to an end. Jack returned home to find Sarah and Sophie in the living room. Sophie ran to him, embracing him with the innocence only a child could have. "Daddy, you're back. I missed you." Jack smiled, bending down to pick up his daughter. "I missed you too, sweetheart. Shall we spend some time together?" As Sophie giggled and snuggled into his arms, Jack looked at Sarah. There was a long road ahead to rebuild trust in their family, but he was determined to try. They needed to find a new foundation for their relationship, something that could withstand the storms of the past. That night, as he tucked Sophie into bed, Jack felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in a long while. He kissed her forehead and whispered, "Good night, sweetheart. Daddy loves you very much." Sophie smiled, already half asleep. "I love you too, Daddy." As he closed Sophie's bedroom door, Jack realized he was ready for whatever the future held. He had faced his demons, sought forgiveness, and begun to rebuild bonds with those who mattered most. He was determined to continue on this path, knowing the journey was far from over but feeling prepared for each step. In the days that followed, Jack experienced a mix of calm and uncertainty. He knew he needed to confront his past and seek redemption with Emily. He called her, asking to meet up, and Emily accepted the invitation, curious yet cautious. They met at a quiet cafe they used to frequent in their youth. The place was almost empty, providing an ideal setting for a sincere conversation. Jack arrived first, nervous but determined. When Emily walked in, he stood up, smiling shyly. "Hi, Emily," he said, trying to conceal his apprehension. "Hi, Jack," she replied, sitting down at the table. "What did you want to discuss?" Jack took a deep breath, preparing for what he was about to say. "Emily, I know it's been a long time since we parted ways, but I needed to meet you and apologize. I found out that I'm sterile and that changed everything for me. I know I caused a lot of pain and injustice." Emily stayed silent, watching him closely. "I already knew, Jack. The doctors told me you could be the issue, but you never wanted to listen." "I know," Jack replied, his voice choked with emotion. "My pride and fear kept me from seeing the truth, and because of that, I unjustly accused you. I'm sorry, Emily. I hope you can forgive me." Emily sighed, feeling a mix of sadness and relief. "Jack, I've moved on. I've built a new life with Tom and Liam, but I appreciate your words. I forgive you, but know that I can't forget what happened." Jack nodded, understanding. "Thank you, Emily. I hope we can be friends, at least for Liam and Sophie's sake." Emily smiled slightly. "Maybe, Jack. Only time will tell." Jack felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He knew the journey to redemption was just beginning, but this was an important step. Determined to continue, he knew he needed to set things right with Tom. Jack arranged to meet Tom at a local cafe. He was nervous but knew it was necessary. When Tom arrived, he seemed calm yet cautious in his demeanor. "Thank you for coming, Tom," Jack began, trying to keep his voice steady. "I know we have a complicated history, but I wanted to thank you for everything you've done for Emily and Liam. You've been the man I couldn't be." Tom listened attentively, his expression serious. "Jack, I did what anyone would do for the people they love. Emily and Liam are my family, and I'll do anything for them." "I know," Jack said, sincerity filling his voice. "I just want you to know that I regret the past, and I truly appreciate what you've done for them. I'm trying to change, to be a better person for Sophie." Tom nodded, his eyes softening slightly. "I believe in second chances, Jack. I hope you find your way." The conversation left Jack hopeful. He knew there was still much to do, but he was determined to move forward. He joined a support group for single parents, seeking to learn and grow from his own experiences and those of others. As Jack worked on his redemption, he focused on being the best father possible for Sophie. Every weekend they spent together was an opportunity to create new memories, to show her that despite everything, he was committed to her well-being and happiness. One afternoon, while strolling through the park, Sophie looked up at Jack and smiled. "Daddy, are you happy?" Jack felt a wave of emotion at her question. He knelt down and looked into her eyes. "I'm working on it, sweetheart. And you make me very happy." Sophie smiled, hugging him tightly. "I love you, Daddy." In that moment, Jack knew that despite all the challenges, he was on the right path. He was determined to do whatever it took to redeem himself and build a new, better life for himself and Sophie. Time passed, and Jack continued to rebuild his life. He maintained regular contact with Emily and Tom, strengthening their bonds and consequently with Liam. The children became inseparable friends, which brought a new dynamic to everyone. During an extended weekend, they all decided to take a trip together to a cabin in the mountains. The idea was to spend quality time in nature, away from the hustle and bustle of the city. The cabin was cozy, surrounded by tall trees and a river running alongside. While the children explored the area, the adults prepared dinner and organized activities for the days ahead. "This is exactly what we all needed," Tom remarked, smiling as he watched Liam and Sophie play. "A time to relax and enjoy each other's company." "I agree," Emily added. "It's been a tough year, but we're all here together, and that's what matters." Jack nodded, feeling grateful to be there. "I never thought we'd all be together like this, but I'm glad we are. You've all been an incredible support for me and Sophie." That night, sitting around a campfire, they shared stories and laughter. The children fell asleep in their parents' laps, exhausted but happy. The flickering light of the flames danced in everyone's eyes, reflecting a sense of unity and renewed hope. Tom looked at Jack and smiled. "You know, Jack, you've really changed. I'm proud of you." "Thank you, Tom," Jack replied, touched. "It means a lot to hear that from you." Emily looked at both of them, feeling an inner peace. We're all here to support each other. That's what makes a family. The next morning, Jack and Tom took the children fishing in the river, while Emily prepared breakfast. The scene was one of pure tranquility, with the sound of flowing water and the children's laughter echoing through the forest. Jack watched Sophie and Liam, filled with love and gratitude. He knew the journey to redemption was ongoing, but he was confident that with the support of his family, he could face any challenge that arose. Summer had arrived, bringing long, hot days filled with outdoor activities and frequent gatherings among Jack, Emily, Tom, Sophie, and Liam. During one of these gatherings, while the children played carefree, Jack and Emily found a moment of peace for a deeper conversation. They sat on a wooden bench under the shade of a leafy tree, watching their children run around the park. The sound of children's laughter was like a comforting soundtrack, reminding them of how simple and beautiful life could be. "Emily, there's something I need to tell you," Jack began, his voice low and serious. "Something I've never told you and have carried with me all these years." Emily looked at him, surprised and curious. "What is it, Jack?" Jack took a deep breath, gathering his courage. "I never wanted to admit this, but a part of me always knew something was wrong with me. Even before we got married, I had a deep fear of being infertile. But my pride, my ego, they wouldn't let me face that possibility." Emily remained silent, processing his words. Jack continued, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "When our struggles to have children began, I was terrified. Instead of seeking help or being honest with you, I blamed you. It was easier that way, more convenient. But deep down, I knew there was a chance the problem could be mine." Emily felt a mix of sadness and empathy. "Jack, why didn't you ever tell me this? We could have faced it together, sought help. I would never have judged you." "I know," Jack replied, his voice choked with emotion. "But my pride was too strong. And when I realized I lost you because of it, it was too late. I created this barrier between us, and you suffered because of me." Emily reached out and touched Jack's arm, offering comfort. "We all make mistakes, Jack. I had my share of blame too, for not insisting we seek help together. But that's in the past now." Jack nodded, feeling a sense of relief in finally sharing this burden. "Thank you, Emily, for listening to me and for forgiving me. I know I can't change the past, but I want to do better for the future, for myself and for Sophie." Emily's eyes softened with understanding. "And you are doing that, Jack. You're here, present for Sophie, and trying to be the best version of yourself. That's what matters. In the midst of their conversation, Tom approached, bringing drinks for them. "Here you go, folks," he said, handing out glasses of cold lemonade. "Thank you, Tom," Emily said, smiling at her husband. "Jack and I were having an important conversation." Tom sat down beside them, sensing the seriousness in the air. "Is there something I should know?" Jack looked at Tom, feeling a newfound respect for the man who stood beside Emily. "I was talking to Emily about the past, about the things I've done and how I'm trying to make things right now." Tom nodded, understanding the depth of their conversation. "I appreciate your honesty, Jack. I know it's not easy to confront our mistakes, but it shows you're truly committed to change." The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the park. The children, exhausted from playing, ran to their parents, seeking a moment of rest. Sophie nestled in Jack's lap, and Liam did the same with Tom and Emily. As they watched the sky change colors, a sense of peace enveloped the group. They knew the path to healing and forgiveness was long, but they also knew they were walking that path together. Jack looked at Emily and Tom, feeling deep gratitude. "I promise both of you that I will continue to do everything I can to be a good father to Sophie and a good friend to you. Thank you for giving me this chance." Emily smiled, wiping away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. "We're all here to learn and grow, Jack. And I believe we're on the right path." Tom nodded, his gaze firm and encouraging. "We're in this together, Jack. For the sake of our families." As the night fell, the group remained united, sharing stories, laughter, and a renewed sense of hope. Jack knew that forgiveness and redemption were not destinations but ongoing journeys. And he was grateful to have Emily, Tom, Sophie, and Liam by his side as he walked that path. Fall had arrived, painting the city in golden and orange hues. The air was crisp and leaves fell like a gentle rain, covering sidewalks and parks. For Jack, Emily, Tom, Sophie, and Liam, this new season symbolized a fresh start, a chapter brimming with hope and opportunities. On the weekend, they all decided to gather for a barbecue at Tom and Emily's house. The garden was adorned with festive lights and colorful balloons, creating a cheerful and welcoming atmosphere. Jack arrived early, bringing desserts he and Sophie had prepared together. As he set the trays on the table, he couldn't help but smile watching Sophie run off to play with Liam. Tom manned the grill, cooking burgers and sausages, while Emily organized salads and side dishes. There was a sense of camaraderie and harmony filling the air, something Jack had never experienced before. "Jack, can you help me with the drinks?" Emily called from the kitchen. "Sure," he replied, entering the house. He grabbed bottles and cans of soda, juice, and beer, taking them outside and arranging them on a table beside the grill. "You did a great job with the dessert," Emily commented, smiling. "Sophie told me you let her decorate the cupcakes." Jack chuckled. "She loved every minute of it. I think I have a little chef in the making." The children's laughter echoed through the garden as they ran around playing tag. The sight of Sophie and Liam together, happy and carefree, filled Jack's heart with gratitude. He knew that despite past mistakes, he was on the right path to building a better future. When the food was ready, everyone sat around the table, sharing stories and laughing at the children's antics. Jack felt a wave of warmth looking at Emily and Tom, grateful for the second chance they had given him. "I'd like to make a toast," Jack said, raising his glass. "To family, to friends, and to new beginnings." Everyone raised their glasses, smiling and toasting to the future. "To family," they echoed in unison. As the night progressed, conversations flowed naturally, and the sense of unity grew. Sophie and Liam started telling made-up stories, each more elaborate than the last, eliciting laughter from the adults. It was a perfect night, filled with love and joy. Later, as the children grew tired and ready for bed, Jack felt a hand on his shoulder. It was Tom, with a sincere smile on his face. "Jack, I want you to know I'm glad we've come this far. You've been doing a great job as a father and as a friend." "Thank you, Tom," Jack replied, touched. "It means a lot to hear that from you." Emily joined them, embracing them both. "We're all in this together, and I'm proud of all of us for finding a way forward." As they prepared to leave, Jack watched Sophie and Liam hug, promising to play together again soon. He felt a wave of love and gratitude, knowing his daughter had the opportunity to grow up in an environment full of support and affection. That night, as he tucked Sophie into bed, Jack felt a sense of peace he hadn't felt in a long time. He kissed her forehead and whispered, "Good night, my dear. Daddy loves you very much." Sophie smiled, already half asleep. "I love you too, Daddy." As he closed Sophie's door, Jack realized he was ready for whatever the future held. He had faced his demons, sought forgiveness, and begun to rebuild bonds with those who mattered most. He was determined to continue on this path, knowing the journey was far from over but feeling prepared for every step. That night, as the gentle autumn breeze rustled the leaves outside, Jack finally slept with a smile on his face, dreaming of the new chapters he and his family would write together.